And so after that, last year I was host, but I was not able to join this event. And this time I can host it once again. And for me, all these information from the experts are interesting to know a little bit more about the history, what was going on in the Caucasus 200 years ago or whatever. And so that was very brief my history. Why I'm interested in your issue, and but I have to learn more about the Circassian history.
Thank you. So, now dear guests, please feel free to ask questions in any language you prefer. And please just push the right button in front of your microphone.
This question is to Mr. Kopka. Quoting somebody who said research should be performed to find out whether a genocide had taken place against Circassians or not. If this is the case, there is no case. Because the tools and the consequences of the crimes the Russians has done or had done before is already there. 90% of the people, they are not living at home. And in addition to that, they are still denying that there is something wrong. Also, the genocide priority should be considered as a priority. Priority comes first to recognize what has happened, then the other steps come later for compensation, rehabilitation, and return home, and self-determination. That's all.
Well, this is what, of course, there is no doubt about the genocide, and this professor didn't deny anything. This is probably, I did express myself not in a proper way, but there's no question about that. This is not the point. The point is only whether in the work you concentrate on the recognition, and I don't agree with you completely. I can understand you, why you insist on that, but he gave us the warning of the Armenians and so on. So, in my work, as working in a museum, I would concentrate more in the conservation and the further development of the Circassian language, culture, that the young people know what they are doing, that they continue to speak Circassian, and they remember then these things. Last year we had this day, on the Memorial Day, on the genocide in our museum. And it was interesting, we said you should tell in public. So then we were told, and then people sat there and thought, not only Circassians, also Chechen and so on, and it was fascinating what they told, and I have learned a lot of new things, but it was like they were telling history, and then they said, well, usually we talk among the generations, the older tell the older, and the younger tell the younger, and it's too much, too little conversation in between the generations, and it was really, we were all sitting with tears, learning this from different generations, and they say they keep too much to themselves. And this is my challenge in the museum, to get all these things out, to get them told in public. And this is what I think is much more important. I remember I have seen many years ago an exhibition on 3,000 years of Jewish history. It was an excellent exhibition. And they said, in this exhibition, you found on the genocide of the Jews only 10 pictures. And then I was asking, why you show only 10 pictures? They said, we have 3,000 years of history, and we don't want to be limited on 10 years of, or 11 years of extinction, or 12 years of extinction. So you have 5,000 years of history. And if you concentrate on this terrible event of what happened during this period, what Richmond describes fully, and I don't have to repeat, you never have to forget that, but you shouldn't concentrate only on that. You should be proud. We're the oldest people, among the oldest people in Europe, and the Europeans have to learn that you're the original Europeans. This is for me. as important as to say, oh, they tried to extinct it. And I give you another example. We have in our museum an exhibition on North American Indians, and they have been nearly extinct. And now they are there again. And we were discussing how much we should concentrate on these barbarian acts on North American Indians. They poisoned them, they gave them smallpox and so on, just by giving them poisoned blankets and whatsoever. They poisoned the sugar and a lot of things. So people said, oh, you don't have any evidence on that. And so we said, oh yes, we mentioned that in the exhibition. We don't deny it, but we show they're still there and they're becoming stronger. And now our North American friends, they said, yes, you have to show the pride. We are still there. We're still fighting. This is as important as thinking of the genocide. And this is, you have to do the one and not forget the other thing. But by concentrating only on that, this is too narrow for me. And this is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I understand, but of course it should not go only for concentrating on genocide. All of the prospects, they can go in parallel together. Genocide is one of the important things, and if we forget about it, we will forget about the others. Thank you.
You know, this is the problem, that many people say, first, if they, you see, how can I put that? If the Russians say, we don't accept that, then you say, but you have to. Well, leave them aside. They won't accept it, because they will never do it. It doesn't matter, because the rest of the world has to learn it. And then, finally, the Russians also have to learn it. If you only concentrate on that, then you're begging that your torturer is accepting that he tortured you.
Nobody is begging.
We had a lot of discussions in that. So I said, we shouldn't have these discussions too much. Some people insist on that. This is what in the discussions I had. I'm not saying that you're doing that. But I saw that as a danger.
So I want to ask to Lars, because he is very familiar with the diaspora organizations of Circassians in different countries. My question is related to the previous question, actually. How do you see different type of organizations in different countries dealing with different issues? One of them is the genocide recognition. Another thing is the culture revival, the language, and the other issues. How do you see the diaspora covering up these issues?
Can you be a little more specific about the issues, just to understand you fully?
Let's say which issue is more popular, which is gaining popularity, and how is the organizations in diaspora dealing with these issues? Just
Okay.
your opinion about the general condition.
It's clear that among the diaspora organizations there, the genocide recognition issue is important, especially among the newer organizations like the Forum that yourself are part of, or the CCI, and the organizations that has probably a history of less than 10 years or so. There, the genocide recognition is obviously a key priority. And even I understand fully the dilemmas that you are outlining in that question. It's probably also it's quite understandable, because if you want to work politicized, and that is the main difference between the new organizations and the older, more association type of organization, that for historical reasons we're only in many countries only allowed to deal with cultural issues. And that's always important to remember, because these actions that the associations have been doing for decades and decades on maintaining Circassian culture is what the new activism are based upon. Without that, you probably wouldn't even be able to do what you're doing right now. So that's part of the whole movement, even though it's sometimes forgotten. But all the cultural work that they have been doing is extremely important, because a lot of the modern activism builds on that. So in a way, what you see now is kind of a split between those, which is not necessarily a split. I see it more like, I don't know how do you say that in English? I can say it in Danish. But that you divide the work, so to say, that there is a new movement who work on more politicized issues, and then there is another part who work on more cultural issues, and that I see them as running parallel, more or less. And I can understand that the Sochi Olympics, of course, together with genocide recognition, is obviously two key issues to go for, and that is understandable. But there are many other issues that are important as well, because it's easy to kind of. There was just the 21st of May celebrations recently, which has become a huge event, for instance, as you know, in Istanbul, which is really huge now. And it's obviously when you have such events, the Sochi Olympics issue and the genocide issues are the key points, and it makes sense. I mean, and that you combine them and make them even much more stronger. So that makes sense. But when you go into the daily business of many organizations, it's not just about genocide recognition. It can be about language, it can be about other issues. But they seem to dominate a lot of these type of issues. And I agree with Gökbe that it's equally important to work on other issues. And all this about how to define the Circassian is, as you all know, very different. I mean, in Turkey, for instance, where the Caucasian Forum is active, you know that you have people from, I mean, even Chechen or Syrian and different types of, where in CCI you have many only Circassians often. So alone that has made this definition problem that you outlined quite a challenge. I mean, and that will be part of the dilemmas you will keep facing. And I think you should have an open debate about these things and say, okay, that's part of our movement. Not try to say we should be like this or we should be like that, but acknowledge that in different contexts there are different definitions, but you still have something in common, and you have a lot in common, and you have a lot of cultural things in common that you mentioned is important in the museum context, obviously. And that will always be important, even though I accept, of course, it's obviously that what the Circassian Forum are doing, for instance, is more activism and it's more based on contemporary issue. And but the question remains, for instance, after the Sochi Olympics, what then? So
actually, I mean, what I understand from your opinion is that it's not alternative to each other. The cultural revival and the political activism not clashing. Actually, they are supporting each other. And actually, within the last 2 years, there have been four demonstrations and meetings in Turkey just about the language and the rights, the demands from the government in Turkey. So this is also a political activism, but it's solely about the culture to recover the language and so on. So I don't see a clash or conflict between these issues.
No, that's right. I mean, because sometimes there is an artificial split, and it makes sense that sometimes if you have a new organization, you have to define yourself. You have to have your own identity, and you do that by comparing to others. That's always the process when you have organizations or new institutions. So, but you're definitely right that they are much more running in parallel and not in contradiction with each other. And even another example is, for instance, the big associations in Turkey, the Kafter and the Kafter, the different Kafters and the Federation of Kafter. They are, if you look at them historically, the way they treat the history of, they are referred to basically as engaging in cultural issues. But if you look at the way they treat history and culture, cultural issues now compared to 20 years ago, it is actually more politicized as well. So the political boundaries are not only what you can say, the new ones are the politically oriented and the old ones are the cultural oriented ones, because they have also changed their approach. And sometimes even because you pressure them a little. And I wanted to, there is a good example from Caucasian Forum that I also wanted to mention, which is that you started to focus a little bit about the Balkars and Karachais as the smaller groups that are co-nationals in Kabardino-Balkaria Republic as well as in Karachai.